Hi, Stacy. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Ellen. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. It's fast and furious. It's exciting, though.
It is.
Exciting.
That helped last night just to talk briefly, and I shared a folder about a half hour ago.
Yes, I saw it. I see it. I will have it here up. Um,
Hey,
the
Stacy.
Google
Hello,
the
Jessica.
Google stuff always eludes me, but I did manage. I let it do everything it wanted to do with sharing, and hopefully that won't be ugly.
Yeah, and I have it up on my other computer, so if we are looking at that at all, I can reference it at the same time. Hi,
Oh,
Svet.
look who's here.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you. So one of the things we realized and wanted to do was there are a lot of chefs in the kitchen here, and we didn't actually necessarily know um, who's driving kind of the artistic vision around the visuals, and wanted, especially because we're going to write about this and know about this and start communication and get into the details, wanted to clarify what the artistic vision is, whose artistic vision is, how, if you have the tools you need, Svet, to do what it is you need to do. And certainly when we start talking about other assets like imagery and such, how and if that fits in. We know that there's a priority that this is an orchestral premiere and that the orchestra is featured because we always do that. But of course, in this case, we also have a narrator, we have narration and a story to tell in a sense, we have quotes, and we have the potential for imagery. But how do you have an artistic creative sense about how this might flow? Stacy definitely has ideas and will share that and part of the mixture, but you're the guy behind the levers, and we want to make sure you have what you need and it's kind of clear to you and you feel confident in it, because most importantly, whatever it is, I've learned this over the years, you don't, artists have the tools in their box that they like using and the vision they have, and there's no point of imposing something else, or at least not talking about what expectations are. So this is the groundwork, and then that will inform Stacy what to tell the narrator, Julie, and her video person, and then we'll all be on the same page. We don't necessarily need to be there to talk through that, but at least we know what we're trying to accomplish. So,
Sure.
to you,
Thank you
Svet.
for asking. I basically had an idea of what I'm trying to show. A lot of the times I felt like I was trying not to go with what we see typically on the screen today, which is literally millions of people playing at the same time, because I find that to be a little overwhelming for the eye. And especially because we're also dealing with a premiere, I thought of finding just slightly more humbling way to show everyone, not at the same time, and in fact, to sort of get through everyone throughout the piece, but allow the listener to be a listener, actually, much more than watch a movie, if you will. I find that the beauty of the piece is that because there's narration, where we really want someone to focus on something visual that has to do with an actual speaker, we would maybe use the screen in its full capacity, and allow the listener at that point to really focus in and be the listener now of the actual spoken message. My idea basically was to try to be simple about this in a sense when it comes to visuals, not to do too much, because I think that would make it really busy for the eye again. And my suggestion basically was, I know Jessica and I had a really awesome couple conversations about just the general portrayal of the narrator. We, in fact, identified a couple of images that could help her just see what we're hoping she could do to frame herself. We're looking for something which is slightly different than what the orchestra musicians are doing, because everyone is recording in different backgrounds, etc. But when you see the actual narrator, the idea of them being the only event on the screen suggests that we have to, take care slightly more precisely, if possible, with how she's framed. And Jess and I were talking about the possibility of her beaming, literally to have nothing around her, to have maybe like a dark background of some sorts, and to really focus in on this part of her body, if you will, to where you can really think of this as more dramatic moment visually. And when Julie and I spoke on the phone, we had a great conversation. I asked her if she'd be willing to give us 3 different kinds of readings of everything. So when she records, she would give us one really dramatic reading, one that's a little bit more introverted and she does more but with quietness, and one that is just her, whatever she would like to do regardless. And so she really loved the idea. Other than that, I know we need to incorporate Cristi. Cristi told me that when we have everything else ready, this will be the first time I think where he comes in last. You know, not least, but last. He would like to be able to join this when he can hear it, because the problem is that otherwise he will be, you know, not having enough context to conduct. And he said he would film himself as well. My idea, and I'll talk to him as well, is not to bring him into the video at all until later in the piece, because the piece starts very quietly. And I think that intimacy could allow us to just kind of show some imagery, if you want. That's where the eye still can really see some things without getting, how should I say, overwhelmed. And later on, we can start bringing in, I think, more of the musicians, select other imagery, but at the same time show Cristi. And I think we can also pace this to where we create a, how should I say this, for someone maybe who does not really know us, also to get to know us a little bit at a time, if you will, rather than at the same time be overwhelmed by, oh my gosh, you know, here's 55 people.
Yeah, so that all sounds great. Are we trying to get every shot with her to be the same background? Like having a dark background against everything, or not?
Here's my my question for you all. I thought that one of the clever ways we can actually work with her products that she gives us is that we do not think of every different character as being the only character we can portray in a piece. I was hoping that actually what we can do is when she gives us different narrations, that we can borrow and create our own story based on which of the 3 versions she gives us of each statement seems to best create the arc for us. And so if you're okay with the fact that maybe some of these may be, you know, slightly different visually than others, I think we should find a way, however we do this, we should find a way that that we can use any of them in any combination with one another. That's the only thought that I think could be really good for us to have.
So
So,
does it mean that the staging should be the same in each? Like she should be on stage for all of them, whether or not it's closer back?
No, I think there could be a slight deviation. Jess, how do you feel? I feel like if it's the same, clearly same location, I think it's possible, especially if we change the shot a little bit. Actually, that might break things up nicely and give us some variety to kind of open up everything, if you will.
Can I ask, since the libretto has changed, right, and it recently a little bit, so now she's not just speaking Susan B's voice, right? She's speaking multiple voices. So
seven of them.
Wow, yeah. So having some variation, so you can maybe indicate when the voice is changing. I haven't read the music.
There is actually, this is a good point to ask the question at this moment. Is there an expectation that the narration will be on screen with the attribution, or no?
We had brought that up, Svet and I thought it might be useful, but only because there are 7 voices, that if we know who's saying which quote. The other way we could handle it is at the very end of the video, show all the 21 or whatever, how many there are now, 23 statements in a row with who said what, if we want to make sure the focus doesn't become, oh, who said what throughout the whole show, or, you know.
Right. And we will have it in the program notes, but also if it becomes part of the piece, I think that will be good, one way or another.
We could put that at the very end, and maybe with some of the music be playing, or who knows what. But okay, in that case, then we don't need to put the narration throughout the whole video. We just save that for the end. That makes that part simpler.
Okay. So
The only question I had about, I'm sorry, just go ahead. I think there's a delay.
yeah, no worries. So Svet, you're tasked with putting the libretto in, or are we talking now that that's going to go in at the end, just standalone?
Well, this is my question. I think, especially because there's 7 characters, I wonder if it may be a little bit easier for people to understand that if we actually add the actual titles and the actual text with the actual, as Stacy you suggested, the person who actually says this. This is the key, really. It's not so much for the text as if it's, guys, whoever's watching, these are different people speaking.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, more like a little lower third that just identifies the speaker, even if it doesn't fully list out the text. If you're going to have it, the full text readable at the end, that perhaps it's just like, and I watched a Shakespeare play once where like they had a ticker tape at the top where like, you know, character X is entering the stage now, so that we could keep our minds flowing.
Well, can I ask you, part of it when I was threading all these together, I think the beauty of it is not knowing who is who. And not knowing who's Black, who's white, who's Susan B. Anthony, and who's not. So I think maybe we could start the screen off by saying, here are the suffragettes that are speaking. Unfortunately, the 3 white women are at the beginning of the alphabet. So I don't know if I should do it in like order of like when they first talk. So it doesn't look like it's 3 white women and then
Sure. Yeah.
okay, so in order.
Yeah.
But then we can just put their names on the front screen, say in order of being read.
Appearance. Yeah.
And then, of appearance. And then at the very end, then everything.
Yeah, I kind of, the reason for Cristi's doing this and wanting to do this now is about where we are now and telling the story about voting rights and inequalities around voting rights and punctuating a need for people to exercise their franchise.
I think
And
that
so
Hi, Julie.
Hi.
Hi, Julie.
Here.
Now that Julie's here, hello Julie, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Svet, since you're here on the call still, did you want to explain to Julie what you're hoping for imagery for when she records?
Hi, Julie. Nice to see you in person. So I know there are some changes in text, and I really appreciate how awesome you've been in being flexible with everything that is being built. Jessica and I have been working on basically giving you some sort of a visual, just a couple images that could just help you see what we're hoping for. And after this meeting, I guess if you're okay, I can send them your way, and I'll copy Jessica as well. But just to give a general idea.
Me too.
Sorry.
Copy
Yes, I will copy everybody. I will copy. And the hope that we have is that because of the narration taking the whole screen, when you speak, we would like to basically take the whole screen and just have you take center stage, if you will. That we can have, as we were talking on the phone, something much more, simple and in a ways almost kind of clean, especially about your background and the detail that we see on the screen. Especially I'm talking about maybe having, we'll show you the screenshots we have, basically allowing you to basically really work with your face and in some shots maybe with your hands. So we're hoping to try to see if we can get maybe 2 different kinds of frame. We're talking about you doing a few different takes of every every paragraph we have to say, and maybe we can try to get you to do it one time when you're a little bit closer up, and one time when you can remove yourself a little bit so we can see your hands and you can have a little bit more space to work with, if you will. I'll send you these, and I'll call you if you don't mind, and we could talk about it and make sure that you're comfortable. But generally, the idea is to try to find a space that allows you to have no detail behind you. Hopefully, like dark background or something like Jessica was suggesting, maybe also like a theater stage, if by chance you have that option, where they can just light you up from the front. You can have a light that really shows your facial features, and other than that, basically we're left with nothing to be distracted by.
And
And
just a void back there.
I'm sorry?
Void behind, just a kind of a black void.
Exactly. Something that allows us to really focus on you. And, for lighting, we're trying to get something that is dramatic in a sense to where, you're lit up from above in such a way that we can see your face well. But other than that, I'm hopeful that we can, really stay away from anything else that the sort of viewer can sort of pinpoint and just really stay with you at all times. So in a sense, I'm hopeful that whether it's a theater stage or a room that has sort of a nice dark background that allows you to sort of just be there and be very present, that would work. Is that possible for you?
Yes, yeah. I'm sure we can. I have this stage. Actually, we have two stages of, and either with the space or with curtains or some sort of soft goods or whatever, we can create that, or even with hard goods. Steve, my technical director, Steve, who's on this, will help me figure out how we can have that nondescript background.
Julie, do the timings work for you, the second counts for each of these spots?
Yes, I haven't gone through every single one, but yeah, the several that I've gone through so far are plenty. I've got plenty of time. I would you prefer it fill up that time, or does it matter?
No, I think the goal is like, I tried to speak it in a lot of different ways. So if I were, I'm not an actor at all. So I was trying to imagine like if I were trying to really deliver this to a room of like 500 students or something, because I used to be a teacher, versus just talking in an intimate conversation. So I tried thinking about it that way. And I found that the difference really ended up on the longer portions. So the more text there are and the more seconds you have, the longer. If you're delivering it slower, it might stretch out. But by no means, if you find that you feel like it's comfortable at a different pace, I think you should go with your instinct.
Okay.
So not to stretch it beyond what it needs.
Mouthful, to, with an extended sentence, and to make it make sense and all of that. So
yeah, and the original Susan B. Anthony one, I had actually divided up into sentences and then like hit the return on all that. So so you could see where those breaks are. But then I figured this is overkill. you see the comma, So that's but that's, I think when I've been reading it, I've been taking very slight pauses at every comma.
yes, great. I think for a lot of them, the longer ones, it really helps in making it make sense.
Right. There's the original Susan B. Anthony text actually, and there's a couple that are left in here, the few that are left of hers, that I did take out a few words, and somehow I felt like this last round I just couldn't do that. With everything that the attention that might come onto the suffragettes who are speaking.
Yes.
People don't know. So I preserved everything, and that's why a couple got wordier.
Okay.
There are a couple that happen when in total silence, and I just wanted to kind of alert you to those being maybe that you've got anything with the fermata and the score. We've tripled the time of everybody holding those notes when they recorded their parts. So you can do those are a little bit freer than anything else in the piece.
Okay.
So I can give you those numbers if that helps.
Yeah.
Number one, you're going to start the whole piece now. No one is going to be with you.
Uh-huh.
So number 6, they're holding a chord under you, but it's a fermata. The same at number 9, they're holding a chord under you. Number 14 and 15, you are the only voice we're hearing, no others. Oh, 14 is with a note, 15 is with silence. And 16E is the same thing with silence. Number 19, they're holding a chord. And number 20 is silence. So those are the special spots.
20s with silence. So what is the in talking about the things with the breaks, what is the difference between like number 6 and something else that is like 16, where it's broken up? Those are broken up, but in 2 different ways on the page. I'm wondering, although I guess with 16 they are placed in they start in very specific places, but on number 6,
yes,
even it's broken up, but you still gave me the timing. So I just wanted to be sure when I'm looking at that.
sure. That's a very good question. Number 6 is basically one sentence, but they're happening over with fermati, with everybody holding under you for all 3 actually. So those are freer because the orchestra is waiting. Whereas over at 16, all the 16 A-B, once again, it's another long statement, but this time they're playing under you. So it's a timed situation.
Okay. And I'm just going to 16 in the score too, just to see it there.
Yeah, you'll see the violas are playing. This is one of the spots where, it was not a perfect art to take out all of Susan B. Anthony's stuff and find stuff that exactly matched down to the second. And this was one of those spots that I'm pretty sure Svet and I are going to have to shorten by about a measure.
Okay.
So that's why I'm thinking don't try to match the long values of any of these sections.
Okay. As long as I don't exceed them,
You're fine.
feel free within them. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay.
Does that help, the clarification?
Yes.
The 2 to watch out for, and this has been true, and it's an identical text from one version to the next, is page 28, numbers 18A and 18B. You were moving at the orchestra is very, they're moving. And so I think that if you can pronounce these with maybe a little more urgency, because the topic right there is, she's saying in the original, Susan B. Anthony is giving her point about what we have to do and why it's important. And so I think if you can speak with a little bit of urgency there, I think that will match.
Yes. What's going on in that? Okay. Oh, I see that. Well, I guess in general, should any, and maybe it would, part of this would be answered by the person who's speaking, but are some of them in their attitude and passion about it are more, are some of these more defiant type things versus pleading versus power to the people or intent. I know the music is going to tell me a lot of that as I'm listening to it over that, but if there's anything in particular that you would want to point out, because I imagine you know them all so much more than I do at this point.
Well, what's interesting is in looking at this, so this is a mix of writings and speeches at this point. Mm-hmm. And actually 2 of the white women have more of the defiant tone. And I wonder if it's because they were in a position to be able to do so.
Right.
And Susan B. Anthony, her speech was really quite ferocious. So her lines in particular, like the original text, you saw she was building her case for wanting it. But I think like number 12, is all this tyranny any less humiliating? I always see her with a little bit of some sort of sneer on her face. Like, you know, how is this despicable thing any better than it was for the men? Like, come on, men.
Right, right.
So I always see that with whenever she speaks. And then at the end, number 23, I wanted to give her the last statement still. I was careful not to let her start speaking until well into the piece this time. But just saying we propose to fight for that. Like, she's defiant in that. But I think the real defiance, the clear-cut defiance, really is Carrie Chapman Catt. So
Yes. Yeah.
her first one, Woman Suffrage is Coming, You Know It. She was actually speaking to Congress, or I think her comments were for Congress. I don't know if she actually got to speak to Congress, but she was basically saying, you know, this is coming. You either are going to do this now, or the party's going to remember this, and they might vote the other way. And so that one was there. And then numbers 19 and 20 were from the same talk.
Yes.
The time for women's suffrage has come, the women's hour has struck.
Yes.
So you might have a bit of the same sort of defiant demeanor for numbers 1, 19, and 20, and they are related.
Uh-huh. Okay, great. Okay.
And I really think there was one beautiful quote by, where is she? Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, number 9. And I wish I could have included more, but most of the other stuff she said was about race, and that wasn't quite what I was getting at. But justice is not fulfilled so long as woman is unequal before the law. And I feel like that summarizes everything that came to that point. So if there can be maybe a little bit more, and it's so succinct.
Right.
So maybe a little bit more.
A poet too, as I think I was reading about her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm sorry, you started to say if that could be.
Just, I don't know. It feels, I mean, everything that's come before it, that's what it represents to me. It's just that we're not going to be equal. Justice won't be good until we're all equal. So if we can have a little bit more of like I'm so sorry, I don't know all your terminology for your field, but like a little more gravitas to that line.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the right way to say it, or?
That sounds good to me. That
Okay.
helps me a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think the biggest thing to think about is you saw the original text of Susan B. building her case. I feel like this is a good counterpart to it. Like it's still, we're building the case. This whole speech is about building the case.
Right.
So I think if you look at all of this is really building to numbers 19, 20, and 23. You know, the 21 and 22 are nice. They're beautifully written. But I think the real point is this is happening whether you like it or not.
Right. And it doesn't, I'm assuming there is no, it's a bunch of different voices, but I'm not going to differentiate as character. It's they're all speaking. It's all speaking through me, so to speak, in a way that I'm not going to pretend in any way at all that I'm someone else. I mean, my words are someone else, but I'm not going to do anything different on the outside or vocally that would change.
I think that's the best approach. And for the same reason that I think it's probably better we don't say who's saying what quote as we go all the way through. If we just say up front, who are the 7 suffragettes, and then we put all these quotes at the very end of the piece as some sort of like, you know, in the credits, so to speak. So, but that way I think you represent all women and all speakers, every part. And the whole point of the rewrite is that there were many people working together, either together or in their own groups to make this happen. And this is hopefully a way to combine all those voices into one. So you are representing all of us. No pressure.
Every woman, as they say.
So maybe just find if you were, is there, I'm so sorry, I don't know how to, well, really with the language, but if there were a character, if you were to be a modern day, so if you were going back in time, how would you want to present this to Congress if you were having to read this to Congress.
Right. Right.
I guess, what's your motivation? Maybe is that the right word?
Which gives it, what we like to do is we talk about stakes. You know, the stakes are high. That the stakes need to be high for all of these. For, like you say, it's if she's talking to Congress or a group of women to get them to support, or even a group of men to support it, but the stakes are high.
Yeah.
As they, you know, with anything, even with present day stuff, that kind of emotional, collective emotional turmoil, and seeing and having something specific, a goal and a challenge and a something really specific that can lead to, I think one of the quotes says that, something, this very specific thing, this tangible thing leads to something much bigger than itself. And
a lot of these, one of the main sources that I used for the Black suffragist quotes was, there's the NAACP began a magazine called The Crisis right back after they formed. So this is around 1910, 1911. And they had 2 issues in 1912 and 1915 that had a whole bunch of speeches by women and men about suffrage, the suffrage movement. And so a lot of these were actually aimed at Black people, saying, here, this is why this is important. So it's interesting to read. Some are for certain audiences, and others were for Congress, and others were to convince women to take part in this thing.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way.
Just as an aside, how did you land on this? What drew you to suffrage movement and all of that?
Well,
and what an interesting way to pair the music and.
Well, the Cabrillo Festival commissioned me to write a piece about the 19th Amendment passing. So that's how this whole thing began. And then I talked with Cristi, the conductor, who wanted it to have a narrator, and that means text. And so, and as I was looking through all these books and earlier in the year, all these women's suffrage cases and all that, or actually last summer, it became apparent to me that structurally as a piece, it would be easier if I chose it from one source. And that's when I discovered Susan B. Anthony's speech and found, this actually, she had just been arrested for voting. This actually, and she's building that case to make this, why she was arrested, why she took this chance. That made structural sense to me. So it's been very odd to then remove that text, because it's like, but that was the whole reason the structure exists. But at the same time, it gave me a really solid structure.
Right.
So, and I'm a very structural composer. For me, that's always the most important aspect, is does the form work? And then is there tension and relaxation to support that form? So it's like, any movie or play where you build things to a certain point, and then it's the same thing. And so when I found these quotes, I was trying to match the same level of intensity of Susan B. Anthony's talk. So I'm hoping I did that well in the short amount of time that we had to do that.
It seems very powerful to me, so I hope that I give it all that it is due and is worthy of.
I'm just really glad we caught it in time. That Ellen called me last Tuesday and said our publicist thinks that this may really be an issue. And I'm so glad she did that, and that we had the time to rethink it over, and I could get enough resources together. And thank you for being willing to switch out the text entirely.
Sure, because I'm planning to, I'm going to do them, one by one, which would be easy for me to, really just take one little chunk and get it down really well, so that I can just do it without having to say, okay, I got to do the whole thing in one take. So it's really helpful to do it that way. And honestly, once I do them, I really don't mind at all whatever nuance it needs to be. And I don't mind changing it at all. It doesn't matter to me, even, you know, as an actor, as a director, I don't mind. As a director, I know that sometimes it doesn't matter what the actor's feeling. What's coming out is, you know, what's gonna matter. And so we sometimes have to do things that maybe, you know, I understand as an actor doesn't maybe feel the way I want to do it, but it's the way that makes sense. And especially because there's music and all of that, I have no qualms at all doing it any direction that works for the piece and supports what you've written. So don't hesitate to have me do something different after I start doing this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I'm really, really looking forward to what you bring. I mean, this is like, you are the reason this whole thing, you know, the text is the reason the whole thing exists. So I can't wait to see how you craft it and how, you know, what you bring to this. It's been for me the biggest part of the puzzle is the narrator, and knowing I want to give freedom, but also I want to tell this story, and how is this all going to meld?
Yes, great. Okay, well, I'll work with Steve and we'll get the background ready, and I'll send a couple of samples so you all can see. Let me know if there's any technical issues, and then emotional as well.
Thank you. And if you have anything else, any questions that you have for me or anything, please let me know.
Sure.
I'm happy to help in any way I can.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Talk to you
Bye.
later. All right, thanks. Bye.
Bye.